Hello friends. Before we begin tonight's story, I need to ask you something. Nearly 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel. If these stories give you chills and keep you coming back, please hit that subscribe button. It truly helps the channel grow. Also, leave a like and drop a comment below. Where are you watching from tonight? Your interaction helps these horror stories reach others who crave the darkness just like you do. Thank you for being here. Some roads should never be driven at night, especially in winter. February 2024. A snowplow driver working the overnight shift on a remote Montana highway encounters something in a blizzard that defies explanation. What starts as a routine clearing operation becomes a night of terror that will make him question everything he knows about the roads he's driven for 15 years. This is what happened to Marcus Webb, and why he'll never drive Route 287 again. Let's begin. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 41 years old, and I've been driving snowplows for the Montana Department of Transportation for 15 years. It's not glamorous work. Long hours, brutal conditions, complete isolation. But it pays well, and I've always liked the quiet of driving through snow at night when the rest of the world is asleep. I work out of the Ennis Maintenance Station in southwestern Montana. Our crew handles about 200 miles of highway, mostly Route 287 between Ennis and West Yellowstone. It's remote territory, mountains, forest, miles between towns. In winter, these roads can be deadly if they're not maintained. I've been on the overnight shift for 8 years now, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 6 nights a week during snow season. The overnight shift is the loneliest. No traffic, no other crew members, just you and your plow truck, and 200 miles of dark highway. Some nights you'll go 8 hours without seeing another vehicle. Most drivers hate it. The isolation gets to them. The darkness, the way your mind starts playing tricks after too many hours alone with just the sound of the plow blades scraping asphalt. But I liked it, preferred it actually. No supervisor breathing down your neck, no one to bother you, just the road and the snow and the rhythm of the work. My route is the northern section of 287, Ennis to the junction with Highway 191, about 60 miles one way. It's a winding 2-lane highway that follows the Madison River through a valley between mountain ranges. Beautiful country in daylight, stark and empty at night. There are no towns along that stretch, just Forest Service roads, a few ranches, and one closed for winter campground. Cell service doesn't exist out there, just dead zones for 60 miles. That's why we rely on the two-way radio. I'd been driving this route for so many years I could do it blind. Every curve, every bridge, every mile marker. I knew where snow drifted worst, where ice formed first, where elk liked to cross. The road was like an old friend, until February 2024.THATs, when everything changed. February 8th, 2024, Thursday night. My first shift back after 3 days off. I arrived at the Ennis station at 10:30 p.m. The evening shift driver, Gary Holloway, was finishing his paperwork. He looked exhausted. It had been snowing heavy all day. "How's 287? I asked, pouring coffee into my thermos. "Drifting bad north of Quake Lake. Wind's picking up. You'll need multiple passes on that section." Gary pulled on his jacket. "No incidents though. No traffic after 6. Road's all yours." We went through the shift change. Everything checked out. Truck fueled. Equipment functional. Salt loaded. At 11 p.m. exactly, I radioed dispatch. "Ennis dispatch. This is Plow 7. Starting overnight shift on 287 North. Conditions moderate snow. Wind 15 to 20. Copy that. Plow 7. Safe shift." I engaged the plow and pulled out onto the highway. The first hour was routine. Snow was coming down steady, about an inch per hour, but not heavy enough to cause visibility problems. My blade cleared the northbound lane clean, leaving a dark stripe of asphalt that immediately started accumulating fresh powder. Traffic was non-existent. I passed through Ennis seeing only a few lit windows and no moving cars. North of town, the highway entered national forest, and the darkness became absolute. Just my headlights, the amber flash of my beacons, and endless white snow falling through the beams. Around 12:45 a.m., I was approaching the section near Quake Lake. The road gets technical here. Sharp curves, steep grades, narrow shoulders with long drops. You have to pay attention, especially at night in snow. I downshifted, reducing speed to about 25. The plow blade scraped asphalt with that familiar metallic grinding. Snow swirled in my headlights. That's when I saw them. Tire tracks in the snow. Fresh tire tracks crossing the highway from the west shoulder to the east shoulder, maybe 50 yards ahead. I slowed further, confused. The tracks were clear, 2 parallel lines cutting across both lanes at a 90-degree angle. Recent too, couldn't have been more than 10 or 15 minutes old based on how lightly they were filled with new snow. But that didn't make sense. There was no road access on the west side, just steep mountain slope. And on the east side, the ground dropped sharply toward the lake. No way for a vehicle to come from or go to either direction. I stopped the truck and keyed the radio. Ennis Dispatch, this is Plow 7. I've got something weird near mile marker 37. Vehicle tracks crossing the highway, but no access roads. Might be a vehicle off-road. Checking it out. Static then. Copy, Plow 7. We have no reports of vehicles in your area. Proceed with caution. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The wind hit me immediately, cold and sharp, driving snow into my face. I walked to where the tracks crossed. They were definitely tire tracks. Narrow passenger car, not truck. They came from the western shoulder, crossed both lanes and disappeared over the eastern edge. I walked to the western shoulder and shined my light into the trees. Steep terrain, heavily forested. Impossible for a car to navigate, but the tracks clearly came from that direction. I crossed to the eastern shoulder. The ground dropped about 15 feet to the frozen lake surface. I could see where the tracks went over the edge, but looking down, I saw nothing. No vehicle, no skid marks, no disturbance on the ice. The tracks just ended. I stood there in the wind and snow, trying to make sense of it. A vehicle had crossed here, recently, but there was no way it could have arrived, and no way it could have left, unless it had gone through the ice. But the lake's surface looked solid, unbroken. I radioed dispatch again. No vehicle found. Tracks cross highway and terminated lake edge. No breakthrough visible. Possible the tracks are older than they appear. Copy, Plow 7. Continue your route. We'll note it for day shift. I climbed back into my truck, unsettled. I sat there for a moment, heater blowing, looking at those tracks in my headlights. Then I engaged the plow and drove forward. The blade erased the tracks as I passed over them, leaving clean asphalt behind. But I kept thinking about it for the rest of the shift, kept trying to find a logical explanation. I couldn't. When I got back to Ennis at 7 a.m., I mentioned it to Trevor, the day shift driver who relieved me. He just shrugged. Probably some tourist took a wrong turn. You know how they are. I went home and tried to sleep, but I kept seeing those tracks in my mind. The way they appeared from nowhere and ended at the lake. It bothered me more than it should have. 4 days later, it happened again. Monday night, February 12th. Heavy snow warning had been issued. 8 to 12 inches expected overnight with wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Blizzard conditions possible. The kind of night that keeps normal people indoors. But plow drivers don't get to stay indoors. I started my route at 11 p.m. Within the first hour, I'd cleared 3 inches of accumulation. The wind was fierce, creating whiteout conditions in exposed areas. Visibility dropped to less than 50 feet at times. Near midnight, I was approaching the Quake Lake section again. The same area where I'd seen the strange tire tracks 4 nights earlier. And there they were again. Fresh tire tracks crossing the highway. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature outside. I stopped the truck, staring at the tracks through my windshield. They were in almost the exact same location, coming from the west shoulder, crossing both lanes, disappearing over the east shoulder toward the lake. I keyed the radio. Dispatch, Plow 7. I've got vehicle tracks at mile marker 37 again. Same location as Thursday night. No vehicle visible. Longer pause before the response. Plow 7. Are you saying tracks in the same location as your previous report? Affirmative. Fresh tracks. Less than 30 minutes old based on snow accumulation. Stand by, Plow 7. I sat there with the engine idling, watching the tracks slowly fill with blowing snow. The wind rocked my truck slightly. Outside, visibility was maybe 20 feet. The radio crackled. Plow 7. We have no reports of any vehicles on 287. Are you certain the tracks are fresh? Dispatch, I'm looking at them right now. They're fresh. Another pause. Copy that. Do you need assistance? Did I need assistance? For what? There was no vehicle, no accident, just tracks. That shouldn't exist. Negative. Dispatch. Continuing route. I engaged the plow and drove forward, erasing the tracks again. But this time I couldn't dismiss it. Couldn't rationalize it as a one-time anomaly. This was the second time. Same location, same impossible tracks. Something was happening here. The rest of that shift I was on edge. Every time I approached that section of highway, I tensed up, expecting to see the tracks again. But they didn't reappear. The next night, Tuesday, was my night off. I spent it at home, trying not to think about those tracks. Failed mostly. Wednesday night, February 14th, back on shift. Clear skies for once. Temperature well below zero. The kind of cold that makes snow squeak under your boots and freezes the air in your lungs. But visibility was excellent. Full moon reflecting off the snow-covered landscape, making it almost bright as twilight. I was approaching mile marker 37 around 1:15 a.m. I saw them before I even reached the location. Tire tracks. Again, same position, but this time there was something else. Footprints. Human footprints in the snow, leading from the tire tracks toward the center of the highway. I stopped the truck 30 yards back, sat there staring, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. Footprints. Someone had gotten out of a vehicle here. Recently, the prints were sharp and clear, but there was no vehicle, no person, nothing. Just tracks and prints appearing from nowhere, in the middle of an empty highway, and 1 in the morning, in below zero temperatures. I should have called it in immediately. Should have radioed dispatch, but I knew how it would sound. Knew they'd think I was losing it. Cracking under the isolation of too many overnight shifts. Instead, I grabbed my flashlight and got out. The cold hit me like a physical blow. Even with my insulated coveralls, it cut through. My breath created clouds of vapor that froze on my beard. I walked slowly toward the footprints, flashlight beam playing across the snow. The prints were clear. Boot prints looked like, size 10 or 11. They led from where the tire tracks crossed the highway toward the center line. About 5 steps total. Then they stopped, just stopped. No continuation, no return prints going back to the tracks. No prints leading anywhere else. 5 boot prints appearing in the middle of an empty highway, and then nothing. I walked in a circle around the prints, looking for any explanation, any logical reason they'd stopped there. Found nothing. The wind had died down. The night was eerily quiet. Just the sound of my truck's engine idling behind me and my own breathing. I shined my flashlight out toward the lake, toward the forest, toward the mountains. Saw nothing but snow and moonlight and darkness. "Hello?" I called out. My voice sounded small and strange in the vastness. "Is anyone out here?" No response, no movement, no sound. I stood there for a long moment, the cold seeping through my clothes, staring at those impossible footprints. Then I walked back to my truck, got in, locked the doors, and sat with the heater running. Something was wrong with this stretch of road. Something I didn't understand, and deep down I knew it wasn't going to stop. I engaged the plow and drove forward, erasing the tracks and footprints. But I couldn't erase them from my mind. 3 times now. Same location. Tire tracks appearing from nowhere. And now footprints that ended in the middle of the highway, like whoever made them, had simply vanished into thin air. The next day, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing those 5 boot prints, kept hearing the silence of that empty highway. I needed to understand what was happening. I needed to know if I was losing my mind, or if something genuinely impossible was occurring on Route 287 near mile marker 37. So I did what any rational person would do. I started digging into the history of that road. Part 4. Investigation. The next day, Thursday, February 15th, I couldn't sleep. I'd come home at 7 a.m., taken a hot shower, eaten breakfast, and gone to bed like always. But I kept seeing those footprints. 5 steps into the middle of the highway, and then nothing. At 2 p.m. I gave up, got dressed, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. I needed to understand what was happening on that stretch of road. I started with the Montana DOT Highway Incident Database, searched for accidents, fatalities, and unusual incidents on Route 287 near Quake Lake. The database went back 20 years. I filtered for the section between mile markers 35 and 40, a 5-mile stretch centered on where the tracks kept appearing. 11 fatal accidents in 20 years. Not unusual for a remote mountain highway. Most were weather-related: ice, snow, reduced visibility. A few animal strikes, one drunk driver, but one accident caught my attention. February 19th, 2009. Single vehicle accident at mile marker 37.2. Vehicle left roadway, eastbound, and went through ice into Quake Lake. One fatality. Driver identified as Rachel Mora, age 34, from Bozeman. Mile marker 37.2. Within a quarter mile of where the tracks kept appearing. I clicked through to the full report. Rachel Mora had been driving home from West Yellowstone, where she worked as a hotel manager. Left work around 10 p.m., expected home by midnight. When she didn't arrive, her husband reported her missing. Tire tracks on the highway showed where her vehicle had left the road. Breakthrough in the lake ice was visible. Dive team recovered the vehicle, a 2007 Honda Civic, from about 30 feet of water 2 days later. Rachel's body was still inside, seatbelt fastened. She died from drowning and hypothermia. Blood alcohol 0, completely sober. No evidence of medical emergency. Investigation concluded she simply lost control on ice. Tragic, but not unusual. People died on these roads every winter. Except, I looked at the date again. February 19th, 2009. 15 years ago this month. My first sighting of the tracks was February 8th, 2024. Second sighting, February 12th. Third sighting with footprints, February 14th. The dates didn't align with any direct anniversary, but something about the timing felt significant. I searched for Rachel Mora's obituary. Found it in the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. Rachel Ann Mora, 34, of Bozeman, died February 19, 2009, in a tragic accident near Quake Lake. Rachel was born in Helena and graduated from Montana State University. She worked as hotel manager at the Yellowstone Lodge and was beloved by staff and guests alike. She is survived by her husband Marcus Mora. Marcus Mora. Main first name is me. I sat back, staring at the screen. Probably just coincidence. Marcus isn't uncommon, but it made me uncomfortable anyway. I spent the rest of the afternoon searching for anything else about Rachel. Found a few newspaper articles. A Facebook memorial page, mostly inactive now, after 15 years. Photos of a smiling woman with dark hair and kind eyes. Nothing that explained why tire tracks and footprints kept appearing at the location where she died. At 9 p.m., I started getting ready for my shift. But I was dreading it. Dreading that section of highway, knowing I'd probably see something again. Because that's what was happening, wasn't it? Every few nights the tracks appeared, like something was replaying, over and over. I arrived at the station at 10:30. Gary was finishing his shift. "How was the day?" I asked quiet. "Light snow. Roads are good." He looked at me closely. "You okay, Marcus? You look like hell. Not sleeping great. Overnight shifts'll do that. Mess with your head after a while." He clapped my shoulder. "Take care of yourself." After he left, I sat in the break room staring at my coffee, wondering if Gary was right. If the isolation and darkness and too many years of night shifts were making me see things that weren't there, but the tracks were real. I'd seen them, walked on them, erased them with my plow blade. They were real. At 11 p.m., I started my route, and that night, everything changed. Thursday night, February 15th. Temperature, 5 below zero. Clear skies, no wind. The kind of cold that makes everything feel brittle and sharp. I drove north from Ennis with a growing sense of dread. Every mile marker brought me closer to that section near Quake Lake. Closer to whatever was happening there. Mile marker 20, 30, 35. At 1:20 a.m. I approached mile marker 37. The tracks were there. Of course they were. But this time, there was something else. A car. A car was sitting in the middle of the northbound lane, about 100 yards ahead of my position. I saw it in my headlights. A small sedan, dark-colored, just sitting there motionless, with no lights on. My heart started pounding. I slowed the truck, raised the plow blade, and approached cautiously. As I got closer, I could make out more details. Honda Civic, older model, dark blue or black, no lights, no exhaust visible, just sitting there in the middle of my lane. I stopped about 30 feet behind it, left my engine running and beacons flashing, keyed the radio. Dispatch, Plow 7, I have a vehicle stopped in the northbound lane at mile marker 37, no lights, appears unoccupied, investigating. Copy, Plow 7, exercise caution. I grabbed my flashlight and got out. The cold hit me hard, even worse than before. My breath created thick clouds of vapor. The night was completely silent except for my truck's engine. I walked toward the Honda, flashlight beam playing across it. As I got closer, I could see it was old, maybe early 2000s model. Primer gray paint in spots, rust along the wheel wells, no license plate, no plates front or back, just empty mounts where they should be. I shined my light through the driver's side window. The interior was empty, no one inside, keys in the ignition, but the car clearly wasn't running. No condensation on the windows, no warmth coming from it. I tried the door handle, locked. I walked around the vehicle, completely empty, no damage, no flat tires, no apparent reason why it would be sitting here. I looked at where the car was positioned. It was in the exact spot where the tire tracks always cross the highway, the exact spot where the footprints had appeared. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with temperature. This car had appeared the same impossible way as the tracks, but this time it hadn't vanished. It was still here, solid, real. I walked back toward my truck to radio dispatch again. Then that's when I heard it. A sound from inside the Honda. A scraping sound, like fingernails on metal, slow and deliberate. I spun around, flashlight aimed at the car. Nothing. The interior was still empty, but I'd heard it, clear as day. The scraping came again, from inside the trunk this time. Long, deliberate scratches against metal. I should have gotten in my truck and left. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I walked closer instead, drawn by something I couldn't explain. I reached the rear of the Honda, put my hand on the trunk. The metal was ice cold, colder than it should be, even in this temperature. It felt wrong, like touching something dead. The scratching stopped. I tried the trunk release, locked. I stepped back, raising my flashlight. The interior light of the Honda came on, just flickered to life inside the car, illuminating the empty seats with pale yellow light. Then the headlights turned on. Both of them, bright white beams cutting through the darkness. The car hadn't started. No sound of an engine, no exhaust, just lights turning on by themselves. I backed up toward my truck, not taking my eyes off the Honda. That's when the driver's door opened. Just swung open smoothly, like someone inside had pulled the handle. But there was no one inside. I could see the empty driver's seat clearly in the interior light. The door hung open, interior light, glowing, headlights shining, waiting. And then I heard the voice, faint, coming from inside the car, a woman's voice. Please. It was weak, desperate, barely above a whisper. Please, help me. My throat went dry. Who's there? Please, I'm so cold. Help me. The voice was coming from the empty car, from a car that had no one inside. I can't get out. Please. I took one step toward the Honda, then another. My legs moved against my better judgment, pulled by that desperate voice. Where are you? I called out. In the water. I'm in the water. It's so cold. I can't breathe. I was 10 feet from the car now. Could see the empty interior clearly through the open door. The dashboard, the steering wheel, the passenger seat, all empty. But the voice continued, getting weaker. Please, tell Marcus. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I stopped. Tell Marcus what? Tell him I didn't want to leave. Tell him it was an accident. Rachel. It had to be Rachel Mora. 15 years dead, drowned in the lake, and her voice was coming from this impossible car. Rachel? I whispered. The interior light flickered. The headlights dimmed, and the voice changed. It became hollow, empty, wrong, like something was using her voice, but didn't understand how humans speak. Marcus. Not desperate anymore. Not pleading. Just void. Emotionless. Like a recording played through a broken speaker. Marcus, come closer. I backed up, shook my head. This wasn't right. Wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Marcus, get in the car. The passenger door opened now. Both doors standing open like arms reaching out. Get in. Drive with me. Down into the water. It's peaceful there. Quiet. Cold. So cold. So dark. You'll like it, Marcus. Just like the night shift. Quiet. Forever. I turned and ran back to my truck. Climbed in. Locked the doors with shaking hands. Through my windshield I could see the Honda. Both doors still open. Lights still on. And in the driver's seat, where nothing had been moments before, I could see something sitting there. Not a person. Not quite. A silhouette. A shadow shaped like a woman, but wrong somehow. The proportions were off. The limbs too long. The head tilted at an unnatural angle. It turned toward me. Slowly, mechanically. I couldn't see a face. Just darkness where a face should be. But I felt it looking at me. Felt its attention like ice water in my veins. I jammed my truck into gear and drove forward. Dropped my plow blade and accelerated. The blade hit the Honda's front end with a massive crash of metal. The car rolled sideways off the road, pushed by 65,000 pounds of truck. It tumbled once, twice, and disappeared over the shoulder toward the frozen lake. I heard the impact as it hit the ice, heard the crack, then silence. I stopped my truck, sat there breathing hard, my whole body shaking. After a minute, I got out, walked to the shoulder on trembling legs. 30 feet below, on the frozen surface of Quake Lake, I could see the Honda. It had broken through. The front end was already submerged, rear pointing up at an angle. As I watched, it slipped further. Water bubbled up around it, black and thick in the moonlight. Within seconds, the car was completely underwater. Bubbles rose through the hole in the ice, then stopped. The lake's surface was still. I stood there shaking, not from cold, from shock, from the absolute wrongness of what I'd just experienced. That voice, that shadow in the driver's seat, the way it had looked at me. I looked at my plow blade. There was a dent, paint transfer. The impact had been real. The car had been solid. But the voice, the shadow, the way it had known my name, none of that could be real, could it? I got back in my truck, tried the radio. Dead. Just silence. No static. Nothing. I sat there for 10 minutes trying to calm down, trying to process, failing completely. Finally, I put the truck in gear and continued north. Finished my route on autopilot, my mind blank with shock. When I came back south, I looked at the lake as I passed mile marker 37. The ice appeared unbroken in my headlights. No hole, no vehicle, no sign anything had happened, just smooth frozen surface reflecting moonlight. Like nothing had been there at all. The radio came back online around 4 a.m., just suddenly crackled to life like nothing had happened. I didn't report what I'd seen, didn't tell dispatch about the ghost car or Rachel's voice, or the shadow that wore her shape, because I knew how it would sound. I knew they'd pull me off the road, send me for evaluation, maybe fire me. So I said nothing. But when my shift ended and I went home, I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop seeing that shadow turning toward me, couldn't stop hearing that hollow voice saying my name. I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start looking. I spent that day researching. Couldn't sleep anyway, so I might as well use the time. At noon, I drove to the Madison County Sheriff's Office in Virginia City, asked to speak to someone about old accident reports. They directed me to Deputy Sarah Chen. I'm doing some personal research, I told her. Looking into a fatal accident from 2009, driver named Rachel Mora went through the ice at Quake Lake. Deputy Chen looked at me curiously. That's pretty specific. Are you a relative? No. I drive snowplow on that route. I've been experiencing some things at that location. Wanted to understand the history. She pulled up the file. February 19th, 2009. Single vehicle accident. What you want to know? The report said she lost control on ice. Was there any other explanation considered? Chen scrolled through. No evidence of foul play. No mechanical failure. Blood alcohol 0. Weather was clear that night actually. Just lost control. She looked at me. What kind of things have you been experiencing? I hesitated, then decided to risk it. Tire tracks that appear from nowhere. A car that showed up in the middle of the highway last night. Same location where she died. Deputy Chen studied my face for a long moment. Then she leaned back in her chair. You're the third person to come here asking about that stretch of road in the last 5 years. My heart skipped. Who were the others? a dot worker in 2019, said he saw vehicle lights that disappeared when he got close, and a truck driver in 2021 claimed he saw a woman standing on the shoulder near Quake Lake at 2 in the morning. When he stopped to help, she vanished. The woman. Did he describe her? Chen checked her notes. Dark hair, 30-ish, wearing jeans and a light jacket. He said she looked wet, like she'd been in water. Location was mile marker 37.3. Rachel, right where she'd gone through the ice. What did you do about it? Sent patrol both times. Found nothing. No evidence of vehicles or pedestrians. She closed the file. Look, I'm not saying I believe in ghosts, but that section of road, something's not right about it. Has been for years. I thanked her and left. That afternoon, I found a phone number for Rachel Mora's widower, Marcus Mora. He'd remarried in 2013, had 2 kids, lived in Billings now. I almost didn't call. What was I going to say? But I needed answers. He answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? Is this Marcus Mora? Yes. Who's this? My name is Marcus Webb. I know this will sound strange, but I need to ask about your first wife, Rachel. Long silence. Then, what about her? I drive snowplow on Route 287, near where the accident happened. I've been seeing things, experiencing things. I think they're connected to her. Another silence. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. What kind of things? I told him. The tracks, the footprints, the car, the voice, everything. When I finished, Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, she never wanted to drive that road at night. She hated it. Always said it felt wrong, like something was watching. But her job required it. She worked late shifts at the lodge. Did she ever see anything? Experience anything unusual? She said, sometimes she'd see another car on the road, always at the same spot near Quake Lake. It would appear in her rearview mirror, then vanish. She thought she was imagining it, blamed it on being tired. My blood ran cold. How often? A few times a month in the winter. She started taking a different route when she could. But that night, February 19th, she texted me when she left work. Said the main highway was the only route open because of snow. She didn't have a choice. What time did the accident happen? Medical examiner estimated around 11:30 p.m., but they couldn't be sure. Her car wasn't found until the next day. 11:30, right in the middle of when I'd be driving that route. Mr. Mora, I said carefully, did Rachel ever mention seeing herself in that other car? Silence. Then why would you ask that? Because I think what I'm seeing isn't just a ghost. I think it's a loop. Rachel driving that road. Over and over, leading up to the moment she died. More silence. When Marcus spoke again, his voice was strained. Mr. Webb. Marcus, if you're seeing her, if it's really her, can you tell her something? What? Tell her I'm sorry I wasn't there. Tell her I should have driven her home that night. Tell her. His voice broke. Tell her I miss her. Every day. My throat tightened. I'll tell her. After we hung up, I sat in my truck staring at my phone. Rachel had seen another car on this road, always at the same spot, and then she died at that exact location. What if the car she'd been seeing was her own future? What if she'd been seeing herself, trapped in a loop, reliving her final drive? And now I was seeing it too. But why? Why was this happening? Why was Rachel trapped? And why was whatever controlled that loop showing itself to me? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing. February 19th was 4 days away, the 15-year anniversary of Rachel's death. Something told me that date was important. Something told me whatever was happening on that road was building towards something, and I was going to be there when it happened. 4 nights later, Monday, February 19th, 2024. 15 years to the day since Rachel Mora died. I almost called in sick. Almost said I had the flu, a family emergency, anything that would keep me off that road tonight. But I didn't. Because if my theory was right, if Rachel was trapped in some kind of loop, then tonight might be the night it happened again. The anniversary. And maybe, just maybe, I could do something. Maybe I could help. Or maybe I was completely insane. Either way, I had to know. I arrived at the station early, 10 p.m. instead of 10:30. The evening shift driver gave me a strange look, but didn't ask questions. At 11 p.m., I started my route. But this time, I'd brought something extra. A digital camera. If something appeared tonight, if Rachel appeared, I was going to document it. Depth proof. The drive north from Ennis felt endless. Every mile marker stretched. Every curve seemed longer. I was dreading reaching mile marker 37, and desperate to get there at the same time. At 11:23 p.m., I approached the location. The tracks were already there. Fresh tire tracks crossing the highway, but different this time. These tracks came from the eastbound lane, from the direction of West Yellowstone, and veered off the road toward the wake. Exactly where Rachel's car had gone through the ice 15 years ago. I stopped my truck 50 yards back, turned off my headlights, sat in darkness with just my running lights on, watching, waiting. For 5 minutes nothing happened. Just silent highway and falling snow, and those tracks leading over the edge. Then I saw headlights, coming from the north, from the West Yellowstone direction. A car was approaching, a single vehicle driving south on the empty highway. My heart started pounding. I grabbed the camera, hand shaking. The car got closer. I could make out details now. Honda Civic, dark blue, early 2000s model, Rachel's car. It was driving normally, not fast, not slow, just a regular car on a regular drive. Headlights cutting through the snow, brake lights flashing as it navigated curves. It passed my position. I saw the driver through the side window. A woman, dark hair, 30-ish, focused on the road ahead. Rachel. She was driving. Actually driving. Not a ghost. Not a shadow. A real person in a real car. The Honda continued south. I watched it approach mile marker 37. And then it happened. The car's brake lights flashed once. Twice. The vehicle started sliding sideways. I could see the driver, Rachel, turning the wheel, trying to correct. But the car kept sliding toward the eastern shoulder, toward the lake. I threw my truck into gear and accelerated, turned on my headlights and beacons, trying to catch up, trying to, what? Stop a ghost? Change history? I didn't know. I just knew I had to try. The Honda went over the edge. I heard the crash as it hit the ice below. I stopped at the shoulder and jumped out, camera forgotten. Grabbed my flashlight and looked down. 30 feet below, the Honda sat on the frozen lake surface. The front end had broken through. Water was bubbling up around it. The car was sinking, nose first, into the black water. And through the driver's side window, I could see Rachel, still inside, still conscious, struggling with her seatbelt. She was drowning, right now, in front of me. "Hold on," I shouted. "I'm coming." I ran back to my truck, grabbed the emergency rope we carried, tied one end to my bumper, the other end I wrapped around my waist. Then I climbed down to the ice. The surface was slick, treacherous. I could hear it cracking under my weight as I approached the Honda. The car was already half submerged. Water was pouring in through the broken windshield. Rachel was screaming, pounding on the window, her face pale with terror. I reached the driver's door, grabbed the handle, pulled, locked. The lock. I shouted, "Unlock the door," but the water was rising too fast. It was already up to her chest. She was panicking, hyperventilating, not hearing me. I smashed my flashlight against the window. Once, twice. The glass cracked but didn't break. The car shifted, slipped further into the water. I heard the ice around it crack louder. No. I hit the window again. This time it shattered. Water poured out through the broken glass. I reached in, grabbed Rachel's arm, felt solid flesh and bone and warmth. She was real. She was here. She was alive. I yanked on the seatbelt release. It clicked free. I grabbed her under the arms and pulled. She came out through the window, gasping and sobbing and shaking. I dragged her away from the car, away from the hole in the ice, back towards solid ground. Then made it 20 feet before the ice beneath us cracked. We'd both webbed through. The water was so cold it drove the air from my lungs. Darkness surrounded me. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. But I still had Rachel. I could feel her in my arms, struggling, fighting for the surface. I kicked upward. My head broke the surface. I gasped in air. The rope. I still had the rope around my waist. I grabbed it with one hand, held Rachel with the other, started pulling us toward the shore, toward my truck, hand over hand along the rope. Rachel was coughing up water, barely conscious, but alive. Still alive. We reached the ice edge. I pushed her up onto solid ground, then pulled myself up after her. We lay there in the snow, both of us soaking wet, both of us shaking from cold and shock. "You're okay," I gasped. "You're going to be okay. I've got you." Rachel looked at me. Her eyes were wide, confused. She opened her mouth to speak, and then she changed. Her skin went pale, waxy. Her eyes became hollow, empty. Her wet hair started to move on its own, writhing like it was underwater, even though we were on land. "No," I whispered. "No, I saved you. You're alive." Her hand, which I was still holding, became ice cold, so cold it burned. She smiled, but it wasn't Rachel's smile. It was wrong, too wide, too many teeth. And then she spoke in that hollow voice I heard before. "You cannot change what already happened." Something emerged from the lake behind her. Something tall, wrong. It had a vaguely human shape, but the proportions were all off. Limbs too long, body too thin, head tilted at an impossible angle. Where its face should be, there was nothing. Just smooth darkness. But I could feel it looking at me, and reached down and touched Rachel's shoulder with fingers that bent wrong. "She belongs to us," it said in a voice like ice cracking. "She has always belonged to us. Since before the building, since before the road. This water has called to souls for centuries," she answered, "and now she is ours." Rachel stood up, moved like a puppet on strings. The warmth I'd felt in her moments ago was completely gone. She was something else now, something wearing Rachel's shape. "Marcus Mora wanted you to know something," I said desperately. "Your husband, he wanted me to tell you he's sorry, that he loves you, that he misses you every day." For just a second, something flickered in Rachel's eyes, something human, something that remembered love. "Marcus," she whispered, her real voice, small and sad, and so very tired. The entity's hand tightened on her shoulder. The human light in her eyes died. "Time to return," the entity said. It pulled Rachel backward, toward the water, toward the hole in the ice where her car had disappeared. I lunged forward, tried to grab her. My hands passed through her like she wasn't there. They walked into the water together. Rachel and the entity stepped onto the ice, through the hole, into the black depths. Gone. I crawled to the edge and looked down. The water was still. The hole was already freezing over. No sign of Rachel. No sign of the entity. No sign of the Honda. Just dark water and forming ice. I sat there in the snow, soaking wet, shaking from cold and grief and helplessness. I'd held her. I'd pulled her from the car. I'd felt her alive in my arms. But I couldn't save her. Because you can't change what already happened. The entity had said it. She answered the call. Rachel hadn't just died in an accident. Something in that lake had called to her, had wanted her. And when she'd gone through the ice 15 years ago, it had claimed her. And now she was trapped, forever replaying her final drive, forever drowning, forever belonging to whatever ancient thing lived in those dark waters. I climbed back up to my truck on numb legs, got in, turned the heat on full blast, sat there shivering and crying, and trying to process what had just happened. The radio crackled to life. "Plow 7, this is dispatch. What's your status?" I picked up the mic with shaking hands. "I'm okay, continuing route." "Copy that." I looked in my rear-view mirror. The section of highway behind me looked normal. No tracks, no hole in the ice, no sign anything had happened. Just empty road and falling snow. I put the truck in gear and continued south, but I wasn't okay, and I never would be again. It's May now, 3 months since I watched Rachel slip back under the ice. 3 months since I learned you can't change what already happened. See, I left the overnight shift. I told my supervisor I couldn't do nights anymore. He didn't ask why. Day shift is easier. People around, sunlight. Normal problems like checking chains and filling salt hoppers and rerouting for weekend traffic. But I still dream at night. Not about snow, or plows or roads. About black water. About a hole in the ice that never freezes over. About a woman whose hand feels warm in mine for exactly 3 seconds before turning to cold glass. I can't hold on to anymore. Sometimes I wake up because I hear it. Not a voice, exactly. That sound ice makes when it cracks under your feet. It doesn't belong in my bedroom. It doesn't belong anywhere but a winter lake after midnight. It follows me anyway. I nailed a letter to Marcus Mora. Didn't call. Words die on phones when they're too heavy. I told him what I promised I'd tell, that she loved him, that she didn't want to leave, that she said she was sorry. I didn't write the part about the thing in the water or how it spoke through her bones. I didn't write that I held her and still lost her. Some truths don't help anyone sleep. He sent a note back. Thank you. That was all. Enough to break me for the rest of the day. I still drive past mile marker 37 sometimes. On purpose, during daylight, when the lake is blue and tourists pull over to read the signs about the 1959 landslide that made Quake Lake. Families take photos. Kids throw rocks toward the water. They don't know there's a second story under the neat plaques. They don't know the lake keeps a ledger. I never see tracks now, never hear voices, never spot a blue Honda on the shoulder with doors standing open like arms. That's almost worse. It means the loop runs clean when I'm not invited to watch. It means the lake doesn't need me to witness what it's already decided to keep. If you spend your nights alone on empty roads, believe this much. When the world goes quiet enough, something else speaks up to fill the gap. Sometimes it's your own fear. Sometimes it's older than your fear and hungrier than your caution. Pay attention to which is which. The price for mixing them up is high. Preston, another man who worked nights, once told me the less you see, the safer you are. He was right. The world can't use you as a witness if you never look too closely. Some roads just want you to pass through. Others want you to stay. You won't know which kind you're on until it's too late to choose. I don't drive Route 287 at night anymore. Not because of the blizzards, or the ice, or the miles of nowhere. It's the stillness. The way the dark listens back. The way headlights make a tumble, and something stands at the far end waiting to step inside it. If you ever find yourself near Quake Lake at 1 a.m. in February, and you see tire tracks appear from nowhere and cross the asphalt into moonlight, don't follow them. Don't get out to look. Don't call for whoever is calling you, because once they're sure you can hear them, they don't let go. This isn't a ghost story to me. It's a road report. Conditions: clear skies, black ice, visibility good until it isn't. Hazard at mile marker 37 that no signage can fix and no salt can melt. Use caution, or better yet, use a different road. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, take care of yourself tonight. Lock the doors. Check the windows. If your house gets quiet enough to hear water you don't have, turn the TV on and make some noise. And if you have to drive, keep going when the darkness asks you to stop. Don't give it your name. Don't answer when it calls. Thanks for watching. Sleep well, if you can.